Hey parents, welcome to level 2, or sometimes we'll call it level B in our reading. And I just want to go through a couple things that you're going to see your child do while they are reading in this level. So we're going to do a lot of review of the couple strategies that we used in level 1, because those strategies are going to continue to stay with us as our levels get more difficult. I want you to keep in mind that as we're moving through these levels, it is also very important that we're building up that knowledge of those sight words, because the more sight words your child is able to recognize, the quicker and faster they move up on their reading levels. So in levels 1 and levels 2, we are really trying to dive in, first of all, to letters and their sounds. We're starting to dive into these words that we're seeing all around us all the time, which are what we call our sight words. And even talking about some of the patterns that we're seeing in those words, so that as your child's level becomes more difficult, they have all of those skills underneath the surface that they need to read those harder words. So level 2, or level B, as you'll hear it called in your books or on your child's book, is starting where level 1 left off. So we're going to continue to work on pointing to each word. Please hold your child accountable at home as they read to you or they read to someone else, that they are using that finger to point under each word. As the levels get more difficult, that finger will then drop away and they won't need to point as much. But for right now, we need to know that they understand that what they're saying is what they're touching on the page, that they have to match. Because, kids are really good at looking at pictures and telling stories, and they can invent and create and do some really good predicting just on the picture. But we want them to understand, especially in level 2, that the word coming out of my mouth is actually the same word that I'm pointing to. So what I'm saying and what I'm seeing, they go hand in hand. And that's such a hard strategy and such a hard skill. So we really want to foster that. Again, we're going to continue to go over that eagle eye. So again, in level 2, it's very important that we're still looking at those pictures, that those pictures tell a story, and those pictures then revert back to a specific word that we might need to use or say in the sentence, just like in level A or level 1. So then we go into a new strategy that we're going to introduce at the level 2 or level B level, and that is Lips the fish. So we introduce old Lips, and you can see her little lips out there. She, just like a fish, uses her lips to eat, and when we see a fish, that's something that we notice is their mouth. And just like Lips the fish, we need to use our mouth when it comes to reading. So you'll notice that all of these characters that we're introducing, they all revert back to a strategy, and those characters just help us solidify or make that concrete for students. So when we say these crazy animals, we're just really trying to get into their world to understand, so that they can understand those reading strategies. Lips the fish, getting your lips ready. That means that when we come to a word and we're pointing, so we're using our pointer pup, we've already used our eagle eye, we've already looked at the picture. Now we're going to use our eagle eye again, but we're going to look at the beginning letter in that word, because we know a word is made up of letters. And we're going to look at that beginning letter, the very first letter. I call it the line leader. So they're really good at knowing lines, and it's the first one. And when we see that line leader of that word, we want to get our lips or our mouth ready by making that sound. And I'm going to show you what that looks like here in just a minute as I flip to a level B or a level 2 reading book. So this is the new strategy, and this is the focus of level 2. Is really blending in the pointing, using our eyes, and now really starting to look at words. And this is kind of where reading starts to come together, because we're no longer just making things up, flying by the seat of our pants, recognizing the repetitive pattern. We actually have to pay attention to what we're seeing on the page. And sometimes this is where kids get stuck for a long time until they can get that strength build up in this area. So don't be alarmed if your child hangs out at a level 2 for a while, because they're just kind of getting that strength that they're going to need to move to a level 3, because they're going to need to make sure they're looking at those words. So that's what Lips the fish is, and we'll work really hard on developing those strategies. Some kids on level 2 can move to another strategy. This is more of a level 3, but I threw it in here. It's called Stretchy Snake. And so a snake can stretch out very long, just like a lazy old cat can stretch out. And just like a snake, we want to stretch words that we see. So no longer are we just looking at the first letter, the line leader, but we're going to look at everybody in the line, and we're going to say those sounds that they make, and we're going to try to put that together to make a word. So that's kind of bridging into level 3, but some kids are ready for that in level B, and we can kind of try to do a little bit of that. I want to remind you that in your child's homework binder, you will see a paper that looks like this. This has all of those strategies, minus the pointer pup is not on here, that we're talking about as we're going through our different levels. So if you're ever kind of unsure of what that strategy is supposed to be about, this is in there for you just as a reference or a resource. Now let's go ahead and flip quickly to the book that I want to share with you before we go. So this is a level B. Look at the corner again. You'll notice a lot of her book levels are alphabet and not the number, but we know that they go hand in hand. So B is a level 2. And this book is called Smaller Than Me. And this book's a great book because it references some concepts that we need to talk about in math, and it kind of pulls those two in. But in the story, Smaller Than Me, again, we're going to practice pointing. Notice how my sentence is longer and actually has a wrapped sentence. So we're going to teach your child to go across the page, and when we get to the end, we have to go down and go across the page again. So that's a little bit of a harder skill. We're going to talk about pointing to each word. We're also going to be looking at that picture with our eagle eye. We notice we see a frog. So when it says this frog is smaller than me, okay, we know that second word is always going to be different. And as we continue to go through, this lizard is smaller than me, this rabbit. And notice again, level 2 is very easy when it comes to predictability. Your child is again going to want to just predict what that sentence is. But in this level, we're going to really hold them accountable to really touching and recognizing, hey, that's the word this. So when I say this, I'm pointing to this. When I say rabbit, I'm pointing to rabbit, and we're going to start looking at those letters and understanding how they do form those words. Now, the one thing that you're going to notice in level B, and I'm going to get to the end here, and I want to kind of show you the difference. Let's go back up to page 7. This snake is smaller than me. So we're, again, staying with that predictable pattern, but look what happens on page 8. They threw something in there that wasn't in the sentence that we were predicting earlier. They put in that word, but I am smaller than this elephant. So the last page is where we're going to kind of go to that stretchy snake for just a minute to kind of really look and say, wait a minute, that's not the word this. We've been saying that on every page. This blank is smaller than me. This blank, but now we're noticing, wait a minute, that doesn't match. And that's where we're really going to see if your child is paying attention to the words or if they're just going through the pattern of predictability. And that's where the meat of the lesson is for level 2. So I just wanted to share that with you as you're reading with your child at home so that you can hold them accountable to those wonderful strategies that they're learning and making sure that they're paying attention to those words. Thanks so much for joining me.